Hello, and welcome to our live stream. I am Stephen Tighe. I'll be your host for today, where we'll be talking about how to accrue wealth as a newcomer in Canada. And with us, we have the wonderful, the formidable Abhijit from Scotiabank. I'm pointing over here, but you're actually in Toronto, Abhijit. Would you like to introduce yourself to the masses?
Thank you, Stephen. My name is Abhijit Bedi. I'm a senior financial advisor at Scotiabank out here in Toronto, and I'll be walking through different options that we have available in Canada to help you.
It makes it all that more embarrassing when you're in Toronto and I'm in Vancouver and I'm pointing over here as if you're beside me. Uh, Abhijit, you did exactly say what we're talking about. We're going to be talking about how to accrue wealth, how to build wealth as a newcomer. So if you are interested in that, please do stick around. If you are interested solely in immigration content and how to get here, we will not be focusing on today. However, you will need to make some money when you get here, so it is useful for you as well. So please do stick around. Abhijit, you're from Toronto yourself, yeah?
Yes, sir.
What's the weather like up there today?
It's beautiful. We got
Yeah,
20-degree weather. It is cloudy, but it's beautiful.
amazing. Yeah, it's Vancouver is just starting to hit summer again, and it's blue skies for the first time. The grey clouds are gone. It's like a whole new city has appeared.
Yeah.
Uh, Guys, let's jump really quickly into this deck because I want to leave the most amount of time to talk about the questions that you have posing to us in our chat at the moment. So please do keep them coming in on our YouTube, on our LinkedIn, and of course on our Facebook. The first thing we need to do, as always, is a disclaimer. So please take a second to read this. This is just a little bit of something just to say, hey, this is just our thoughts. This is informational purposes only. But that's illegal out of the way. So let's jump into our very first slide. The benefits of investing and building wealth. Abhijit, what's your thoughts on this? Can you take us through this slide?
For sure. The biggest one, it gives you financial independence. It helps us reach our goals. It protects our money from inflation, and it hopefully gives us the ability to retire. Whether that could be that you're a snowbird, or you want to just live a cozy life in the cottage country. It just gives you the ability to plan and hopefully fulfill your dreams.
Or maybe both. Maybe you're a snowbird with a cottage and then you're able to travel somewhere else in the world. Um, it's a very interesting things you're bringing up. Inflation is something that's on everyone's mind these days. It's a hot topic, and we're going to be looking at some ways that you can maybe protect yourself or buffer yourself with a little bit of planning today, right?
Yeah.
Cool. And in doing that, we are actually going to use some real situations but made up people to talk about. Am I correct in saying that?
Yes.
Great, perfect. That's always good to know because made up situations are not helpful to anyone. So let's look at the Zhang family. We're going to take these guys, folks, as an example of people coming to live in Canada and how we can help them accrue some wealth. So I'm going to read through this here, Abhijit, and then we can get into the nook and cranny of it. The Chen and Betty and Lee are newcomers to Canada. The Zhangs are permanent residents, which is pretty impressive from someone who came on a working permit. They are both dual income professionals, and they're renting in the suburbs of Vancouver, which is notoriously not the cheapest place to live in the world. And they have some goals. Abhijit, would you like to talk us through what their goals are?
Yeah. So with these characters, we're going to be addressing three. So one is going to be education fund for Lee, their daughter, buying their first home, and they also want to take a trip to explore the eastern provinces.
Would you say, Abhijit, that these kind of goals are relatively common or pretty similar for newcomers entering the country?
Yes, especially if they have children from abroad. Yeah, especially if they have children. One of the main concerns is the cost of higher education being extremely high, relatively speaking. And Canada does offer solutions that can help um,
For sure.
fulfill that. Yeah. And then the
For
first home, everybody wants to get into the housing market in Canada. It's kind of rough, but this we have solutions that can help them achieve that
that's
goal.
that is super exciting because it's one that I'm particularly passionate about and hoping to address when we get to that slide. Abhijit, I do have a question though. For someone like me who can find it a little bit difficult to prioritize financial goals, is there any sense in the order we have these in here at the moment? Or is there any thing that you would say, hey, maybe focus on this first and this second? Or is this kind of like, hey, here's what they want. Now let's make it work for them as best we can.
It totally depends on the clients. So in this case, we would be asking Chen and Betty, what would you want to prioritize first? A lot of the plans that we do have are capped at how much money you can put into different accounts. So once they start capping out one, they can start moving money to a different account to target a different goal of theirs. It's very personal, dependent on what you want to do, what your individual goals are.
For sure. And with that in mind, let's jump to the first slide because it sounds like we're going to be unpacking these in a little bit more detail. So the first thing on our slide was building an education fund. And Abhijit, when I was going through this earlier and I was seeing a lot of acronyms, RESPs, can you talk us through what these things are and how they may work?
For sure. So the first one we're going to deal with is the RESP, which is a registered education savings plan. It's for kids that want to go into higher education after high school. So that includes colleges, universities, trade schools, apprenticeship programs, and then the way it works is the government offers you 20% of any money that you put in, capped at $2,500 of your own money, and they'll give you 20%. So in our case with the Zhang family, we would be suggesting putting $208.33 into a high risk mutual fund. We're assuming that these clients they have a high risk appetite. They're willing to take on more risk since we have more than 10 years left until we actually need to use the money.
Right. Okay. Loads of questions coming from this. I suppose the first one that I'm curious about is, there's high school, there's trade schools, colleges, universities. Is there any kind of schooling that you're aware of at the moment that the RESP doesn't cover, that you can't pull the money out and use it for? Maybe international schooling, for example.
So international schooling is fine. You're able to take the money out for that. It needs to be an accredited school and an accredited program. I'm not 100% sure of any that have come across my table, but I have heard that there was like a music program offered by. It wasn't a college; it was just a company that was offering a music program that was not accredited, so they were not. You couldn't use those funds for that program.
Okay, so if you are opening one up and planning on pulling your money out for it, just do a little bit of due diligence and make sure you know where it's actually going and what the institution is accredited, I guess.
Yes.
The other question I have on this slide, and this is really showing my ignorance in investment overall, what does high risk actually mean? Because it doesn't land with me other than, oh, my money might disappear into nothing. Is that the case?
Not necessarily. So with the chartered banks, when we assume high risk, the maximum that we're kind of looking at is that over a 1 year time horizon, we're expecting a 30% decrease. It's not that once you lose 30%, that money's gone forever. It's that can you handle that type of downturn? Money's emotional, so when you see on your phone the money goes down, down, down every day for a couple of months, people panic. So having high risk tolerance basically means that you're able to withstand the downward trend of the market, and then when it recovers, you'll be fine. It's just an emotional thing, and
Okay.
everybody has it. It's completely normal.
Okay, and you're absolutely right. Everyone has it. Money is an emotional thing, and people with money can be emotional as well. I know that's speaking from my own personal experience. So correct me if I'm wrong. I just want to sum this up for my own head and hopefully the people watching. A high risk is essentially that you're able to extend it over time in an effort to make back that initial investment and more. That you can leave it there for a while and not need to pull it straight away.
Yes.
Cool. There you go. I'm becoming an educated banker already. Let's go on to our next slide and see what else we can do for the Zangs. Okay. Buy their first home. Now, this is one that I am extremely interested in. Can you talk us through what we're seeing here?
Yeah. So one of the solutions that we have is called the RRSP, the Registered Retirement Savings Plan. You can have it for yourself, your partner, or you can open up an RRSP. It's called a spousal RRSP, which is you put in the money for your spouse, you get the tax deduction, and then your spouse is the one that will get the funds. One of the perks of an RRSP is that you can take the money out before retirement for purchasing your first home. If you do that, you're allowed to take out $35,000 and pay it back over a 15-year time span, but that money taken out is tax free.
Oh wow. Okay, and that kind of answers my initial question: is why are we talking about retirement saving plans and first homes at the same time? Because they seem to be two very different points of someone's
Correct. Yeah.
life. So
Yes. Very.
essentially, is it a case that you're building for the future, but when you need to do the immediate, you have that money at your disposal, tax free?
Yes. Yeah. 100%
Amazing.
right.
And what are the plan for the Zangs in this particular situation?
So in Canada, you can take out 18% of your taxable income and put it towards your RRSP. Um, because our time horizon is again very long, we can assume a medium to high risk. Um, and again, the assumption is that the Zhang family is um, they have a high risk tolerance, so a medium to high risk mutual fund over the course of 5 years, trying to put in as much as we can and to the maximum of 18% of their taxable income.
So, just to clarify, within Canada, 18% of your disposable income each month can go into this thing, and then a medium to high risk is just because it's in a shorter time period, so it might not be as much risk involved. Is that kind of how it works?
So I wouldn't recommend going with a super aggressive fund for this particular situation. So mainly because we will need the funds within 5 years. Yes, it's a retirement account, but because our primary objective is for a home, I wouldn't want to put it into something that is very volatile, assuming that we're going to need the money sooner rather than later.
Okay, and this particular account, this savings plan, is what every realtor I speak to has told me to get onto, and I've yet to do it. So after today, expect a call, Abhijit. We'll be setting one up right now, but it is one that seems to be one of the cleverest ways, or the smoothest ways you can accrue wealth to buy a home, based on what I've
Yeah.
been told as well. Let's go on to our next slide. More buying their first homes. We have some more acronyms here. Can you talk us through what we're seeing?
Yeah, so this is the newest account that got released in, I believe it was 2023, or the end of 2023. It's called the First Home Savings Account. Any money that you put towards this is very similar to an RRSP. You will get a tax receipt for it. You're capped at $8,000 per year that you can put for the lifetime contribution limit of 40,000. So with with the Zhang family, we're going to be putting $666 each into a medium to high risk mutual fund since our goal is like exactly the same. And any money that we use, any money that we earn within the first home savings account is going to be tax free if we use it towards our first home. If you take the money out and use it for anything else, you'll be taxed on it as income tax.
Right. Okay, but you can actually take it out for anything else if you want. You just won't get that tax
Yes.
benefit. Okay.
Yes.
Is there any limitations to who's eligible for FHSA? So if I'm coming from, I assume first home in Canada. Doesn't matter if you have a home elsewhere, right?
Yeah.
Cool. Does it matter about product type at all when we talk about home ownership? There's a lot of in Vancouver, and I'm sure the same as in Toronto or Ontario. There's a lot of new builds coming up and pre-construction and things like that. Can you take that out to put to a new home in that kind of capacity?
Yes. So most of the time when you have the when you have new constructions, they usually want the down payment beforehand. So with the first home savings account, you can't take that money out unless the closing of the property is within 30. Sorry, the money that you put in has to be after 31 days. Has to sit in the account for 31 days, then you can take it out. So you need to have a firm closing date before you take the funds out.
Right. Okay. But actually, quite open and malleable in comparison to home ownership in general. So it seems like quite a clever route to go down if you want to accrue some wealth.
For
Let's
sure.
jump on to our next slide. Okay, we got some more about buying the first home. So tax-free savings account. This sounds right up my alley. Talk to me through what we're seeing.
So this is my favorite account of all the accounts. It's called the TFSA, the tax free savings account. So as long as you're over the age of 18 and you have a SIN, so you're a resident of Canada, you can start putting money in. So in our scenario with the Zhang family, we're going to assume that they got their SIN or they got their PR in 2024. So their contribution for each of them is around 7,000. So we're going to put $583 each month into a medium to higher risk mutual fund. So same thing as the other funds that we have. Ideally, this is an account that we're going to use to fill the gap with any amount of money that we can't put into the RRSP. or the first home savings account. But if for people who are watching, this account can be used for pretty much anything. You can use it for, oh, I want to save up for a vacation in 2 years. There's a perfect account for that. Any money that you earn within the tax-free savings account is yours. The government doesn't touch it. It's, in my opinion, the best account that we have in Canada.
And you're telling me that you just need to be a resident. You don't need to be a permanent resident. So someone like me, who was a temporary worker, could have signed up from this from day one.
Yes.
Wow. So I have wasted 2.5 years of tax-free savings. Abhijit, this call is going to be long after this. We're going to have to go through many accounts to set up. Let's jump a little bit off from that then. If you are going into a Scotiabank branch to set up your new account as a newcomer in Canada, can you request a tax-free savings account on the same day, or is there more of a process to setting one up?
Nope, we can set it up the exact same day. The only requirement is that you have the SIN. And a lot of the time, if you have a work permit or if you're a student permit, you have a temporary SIN. When you have the temporary SIN, they need to be updated immediately. Otherwise, the account can become deregistered and then tax implications start. So you have to make sure that wherever your tax-free savings account is, that institution, you update them whenever your SIN gets updated.
That makes a lot of sense. Abhijit, we have questions coming in at all times. You can't see them yet, but I can see them on my screen here. One that's come in that I want to address now, because I think it is very, very useful. If someone only had enough to fund an RRSP or an FHSA, and the goal is to buy a home within a few years, which should I fund and why might I do that?
If the primary reason is for a home, the first home savings account is going to be a lot better, since you don't have to put that money back in. So with the RSP, with the 35,000 that you can take out, you will eventually have to pay that back over a course of a 15-year time span. But with the first home savings account, that money you put in, it's put into a house. The government won't ask you to put it back anywhere.
Nice. Okay, I love it. Let's move on, and some of those questions will come through, and we'll pull out some of the ones that are relevant specifically to the slides. Let's go to the next slide. One of my favorite ones, exploring this country. You get here, you want to see what's out there. How can we do it efficiently and cost effectively?
So one of the best ways is to facilitate whatever your goal is with every product you have. So one of the options is with your credit card. A travel credit card is amazing. So the one that we have on display right now is a Scotia Visa Passport Infinite. This card can be used for redeeming flights, hotels. You can go to certain grocery stores like Freshco and Sobeys, and I think Farm Boy if you're out closer to like the Quebec side or even Northern Ontario. With these cards, you also have travel protection, so flight delays, lost baggage, if you have a rental car coverage. And one of the best perks that I've seen with these cards is that you get concierge services. So if you are looking to travel, let's say to Montreal, you can give them a call, be like, hey, I'm coming on these dates. Can you set up an itinerary for me? They will call, make all the bookings for you, and you can have your lunch, dinner, and activities all planned out by Visa Infinite.
And this is one of those cards that I can actually speak to because it's the card I've got when I signed up with Scotiabank. And I think you might even be underselling some of the perks because they are phenomenal. Like, you can assign the points post spending the money on a travel type purchase. So Uber, because that can be considered a travel type purchase, you can assign points and get some money back. It's really great. I use it. I use it in a rather clever way. I use a hotel gym, and because it's a hotel thing on my statement, my gym is now technically free every month, which is great. I just offset it off. It's wonderful. I'm very curious though, Abhijit. We're talking about travel and we're talking about accruing wealth. Why are we talking about a credit card as the best way to do it? Is it really just those savings we talk about?
Yeah, so everybody has expenses. We all have to eat. We all have to travel for work. We have gas that we need to pay for. If you can put that on a credit card that gives us points, you're basically shaving off, let's say, 1 to 4% off whatever your daily purchases are. And we can use that money for other things like saving for our first home or putting it into tax-free or the first home savings account. It just helps us shave off a little bit of our expenses and then you also get, again, you get perks with the a lot of these cards as well. So with the Visa Infinite, let's say you were traveling, oh, you get free lounge access.
Mm.
So I think, yeah, 6 passes per year.
Yeah.
So the main perk is it helps you achieve your goals a little bit quicker.
And the lounge access as well should be noted. It's free, but you can bring a guest as well, which my partner has really appreciated every time we've travelled abroad recently. Uh, Abhijit, I'm curious as well. Is there any kind of minimum spend that makes this card the most sense for travel?
There isn't a minimum spend. On our Scotiabank's website, we have a credit card comparison tool, and you
Mm.
can actually put in exactly what your expenditures are every single month, and it'll drop down and do a comparison with all the credit cards Scotiabank has to offer, and you can kind of pick and choose. Maybe the Scene Visa might be the best option. Maybe the Gold Amex might be the best option. It just personally depends on what your spending style is.
For sure, for sure. Very well said. All right, let's move on and let's see what we got coming up. So we've done the Zangs. They have now saved all their money. They have a house, they have an education fund, and they're traveling Canada. We got someone else that we want to talk about. So Ronak Patel, he's a student working part-time between classes, rents an apartment in Toronto, which is a feat all in itself, I hear. And he wants to buy a new car and establish an emergency fund. How frequently do you see a persona like Ronak come into Scotiabank to set up an account?
The students are cyclical, so whenever the intake time is for the colleges and universities, we have tons of kids coming in, and usually the first thing they want to do is like, I need to set up an emergency fund because they want to send money back home to their parents, and the second one is like, I need a car so I can just go to a job or just get from point A to point B, or even just help with groceries.
Students these days are a lot kinder than I was. I think the car would have been my first priority when I landed back at the day. An emergency fund definitely second. But it's nice to know people are better than I was when we were younger. Let's move on to see what we can do to get a car. Talk us through what's on this slide here.
All right, so another account is called the non-registered account. Anybody can open these accounts. Um, with So the whole point of the non-registered account is, let's say if you max out your tax-free savings RSP first home savings account, and you still have extra funds that you want to invest in, you would be putting them into the non-registered account. There is no tax benefit for the non-registered account, so any money that you make will get taxed. Any losses, you can write those off against your income. The main purpose of the non-registered account is that there's no contribution limit. There's a lot of flexibility on like when you can take the money out and put back in, but there's no major tax advantages either. For a student, because life is crazy, you're still establishing your roots. Having flexibility where like you don't feel like you're being limited is ideal. So in this scenario, again, assuming that we don't have like once we have enough questions answered, this might be a good account for Ronick to have.
Nice. And I think you touched on it a little bit, but really, what is the main benefit of it not being registered with the my word words? What's the main benefit of it not being registered with Canada's federal government?
Ideally, it's there's no limit. You can take
Mm-hmm.
money in and out anytime. Um, it, there's no benefit per se. It's just it's less limitations on what you can do with that money.
For
You
sure.
easily take it out.
I mean, less limitations on my money is a massive benefit for me, so I will take that any day of the week. Let's jump on and let's see where we're going here. So, the guaranteed investment certificate. Talk me through what's here.
So within any of these accounts, we can, instead of going to mutual funds, we can go into a GIC. Generally, if someone is looking for a shorter time horizon, we generally would push them towards a GIC. Your income is always, sorry, the money that you invest is always secured. So if the market goes up or down, doesn't matter. The amount that you put in is always guaranteed, and the interest is always guaranteed when you sign. Scotiabank has a bunch of options for GICs. You can go from a 1 month to a 5 year plus GIC.
All right. And, excuse me, how. What is the trade-off you make when you go the GIC route versus the other accounts or the other programs that we've been talking about?
So with mutual funds, you're always in the market, and if the market goes up or down, you can benefit from the gains. but yes, you're also exposed to the losses. With the GIC, you're kind of what no matter it doesn't matter what the market does, you will always have your money protected, and always the interest is always guaranteed. One of the biggest downsides that a lot of people have pointed out is that with the mutual funds, you can take the money out at any time. It's never locked. But with the GICs, there are some locked and some cashable. But if, let's say you lock your money in for a year, but you need to take it out in 9 months, you can't touch that money for 3 months. You're out of luck.
Right. Okay. Okay. So certainly, if you're a bit more risk adverse and you have some more long-term plans with money backed up, GIC might make a little more sense for you.
Yeah.
It's all backing down to this idea of accruing wealth is a relatively personal process. And when you have
Yes.
someone like yourself, who I'm going to be talking to after this call, being able to talk you through the process, you can really set yourself up for success.
Yes. Everybody's
Nice.
different. Yeah.
For sure, for sure. Sorry, I keep looking down because I have questions down here to ask, but you're answering so many of them already, so I'm not trying to be rude, just so you know. 100% principal. That's our next slide. Cool. Okay, let's move on to market-linked GICs, which I think you just touched on a little bit there.
Yeah, so there's regular GICs and then there's market linked GICs. Market linked are kind of an in between. Rather than being exposed to the mutual funds or the market directly, the money that you put in will be secured, and the interest rate is not. So if the market goes down, you don't lose any money. You have a minimum rate of return. But if the markets go up, you're capped. So right now we have, I think that they can be anywhere from 2, 3, and 5 year market linked GICs. The minimum guaranteed right now, I believe, is 2.5, and the maximum is about 50. So if over a course of, let's say, 5 years, if you have a 50% rate of return, that means you made 10% every year. But if the market did perform that usually means that the market probably would have given you a 60 or 70% rate of return.
Well, that's not bad.
But yeah, pretty good.
um, cool. What does a 100% principal protection actually mean?
So let's say if you put in $5,000,
Hmm.
if the market, let's say, tanks within a 2 year time period, you still get that $5,000 back. It's not like if you put it into a mutual fund where, let's say, you put in 5,000, 5 years later the market is now only worth 4,000. You would have only gotten 4,000 back. With this, you will still get the 5,000 regardless.
Wow, so you really are protecting that initial investment.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things as well I think is worth talking about, and this is colloquial, observational perhaps. We spoke about it before we came on this call. Scotiabank is one of the institutions out there that really can help you buy a new car on a temporary work permit, which isn't common for every other institution.
Yes. So we have a special plan for international a work permit and PR. If you just land and you need to get a car, you can, if it's a 4 year or, yeah, 4 year old or newer car, you're able to get a special rate, and it's a lot easier to qualify with their
Mm.
I think it's called Scotia Dealer Financing. They make it a lot easier for newcomers.
Yeah, I will say this is a personal note. This is not speaking for moving to Canada or for Scotiabank, but I have found through my own experience of living here, Scotiabank are one of the best newcomer friendly institutions that I've come across. There seems to be an effort and understanding that when you move here, there's limitations and you guys are working around them. So greatly appreciated. And we're going to get that car as well after this call. Uh, all right, so we got Ronika's car, but now we need the emergency fund, or he's getting the emergency fund and he's got the car sorted already. What are we seeing here? Liquid savings accounts.
Yeah, so with any type of plan that we put into place, having an emergency fund is vital because life is not linear. The things happen. You can have a car breakdown. You need to send money again. I've had situations where people need to send money home because a situation went bad. You always need to have some money put aside that's not really invested in anything, but it's just safe, where it's collecting a little bit of interest. So a liquid savings account basically means that you can touch it at any time. There's no limitations on when you can take that money out. Right now, Scotiabank has the 6.05 on the Momentum Plus savings account. There's a little caveat with how that works, but Savings accounts really don't offer the best interest rates, but they do offer liquidity, which is very important when it comes to an emergency fund because life is crazy.
Life is crazy. That is very, very fair. And I think the Momentum savings account is, or Momentum Plus savings account is the one I actually use. And I remember talking to a rep in Scotiabank before, and they said, hey, if you save $8 a day, which is 56, $55 a week, you can end up with $3,000+ in your account by the end of the year. Like it's those incremental savings in an emergency fund can make a huge difference. Um, and it's nice that you can pull it whenever you want because I am notoriously spontaneous with my purchases, particularly when it comes to camera gear. Uh, Abhijit, what is the kind of trade-offs you'd be looking at via this type of saving model versus one of the other investments type saving models?
Um, the biggest trade-off is going to be your rate of return. Savings accounts, again, not a lot of interest that you're going to be getting out of it. Instead, when you are investing, they can compound immensely. The idea behind the savings account, you generally want to invest and save. The point of the savings account is to prepare for a rainy day. The point of an investing strategy is that you have a goal in mind, whether it be buying a house, buying a car, or even just taking a vacation with the family. Whatever you're working towards a goal, where the emergency fund is just for if something goes wrong, this money's there. You lose your job, your car breaks down, anything, that money is going to help you survive until you recover.
For sure. And if you're anything like me who buys a very old car, but we'll solve that soon, your car breaks down very frequently. So the emergency funds are great. We have a great questions after coming in from Andrea. She wants to know, would it be better to keep her emergency fund in a TFSA or should she use the high interest savings instead?
It depends. So when it comes to having, if you're not using the tax-free savings account for any other goal, I don't see a reason for you to not have it there. But it also depends on what you're invested within that tax-free savings account. If I'm assuming you're in an emergency fund, you're probably going to be heavily into the bond market. So it's going to be a lower risk mutual fund. It's not going to be giving you tremendous returns, but it's supposed to be very, very stable. It would be fine. If, again, this is assuming that you're not using the tax-free savings account for any other goal right now besides an emergency fund. But if you have, let's say, even if it's something like saving for a vacation, I'd rather you save that money in the tax-free savings and get a little bit more aggressive.
For sure. Andrea, I hope that answers your question. I see you sending in some more, so we are going to touch them on a second. But before we do that, we're going to conclude our slide portion and give you a little bit of information on how to connect with Scotiabank. So, folks, this is if you are interested in talking more with Scotiabank, maybe you are interested in moving to the country and you want to get yourself set up in advance or talk through your options in advance. We have some phone numbers here for you. But as always, I think booking an appointment once you land is always a huge benefit because you get to speak to the wonderful people like Abhijit who can talk you through all the things you need to know. But yeah, get in touch with Scotiabank today. Abhijit, anything to say on the matter?
Nope, I'm looking forward to seeing all of you guys here. Yeah, I love talking to people, so swing my way if you guys are in Toronto.
Sweet. I'm going to fly over just to get this conversation in. But we do have some more time. And we are now going to be looking at some questions. So bear with me, Abhijit, as we scroll through the massive questions we've been getting as we've been on this call. Would the card be helpful in also claiming? Okay, let us talk to Arcana, I hope I'm saying that right. I believe this is about the Scotiabank passport card, the credit card that we spoke about. Would it be helpful in also claiming credits and also international travels?
Yes, so if you have any scene card, you can use the points to work towards Apple products and Best Buy products. You can also use it towards restaurants and grocery stores. If you are doing international travel, there's two cards that Scotiabank offers that doesn't have the 2.5% markup. So the Gold Amex and the Visa Passport Infinite. The Visa Passport Infinite is extremely efficient when it comes to traveling anywhere that doesn't accept U.S. currencies. Let's say if you go to Europe, when they do the conversion, it'll be from euro to Canadian. But with the Gold Amex, it doesn't off, it you don't pay the 2.5% markup, but it will be converted from euro to American, then Canadian. So you're gonna have to be hit by two conversions. So the Visa Passport Infinite is probably the best travel card that Scotiabank has to offer.
For sure, and I can personally attest to that. Having been back in Ireland over the Christmas break, it was very nice not getting hit with two conversion rates, and also being able to offset a large portion of airfare back on from the card's points. Let's look and see what else we got there. If I only have enough to fund an RRSP, oh, we actually talked on that one already. That was from Nozad. Perfect. Okay, that was the one we touched on earlier. Watching from Colombia. Nice to see you. Now, this one may be a little bit out of our remit, so we don't need to answer the whole question, but I think we can talk a little bit on something. The limit of remittance to bring from India when you become PR. Do I pay taxes in India or in Canada? We don't need to go into the legal side of it, but bringing money in from a country when you land, usually you have a bank of savings. Could you speak about maybe some of the best ways you could distribute that money to set yourself up for success?
So I know that whenever people do come from abroad, they usually bring the money through the non-registered accounts, since that's one of the easiest ways to bring the money here. Once it's here, people usually take it out, and especially if they have their SIN already, the first thing they do is they put money in a tax-free savings account, and the rest of it they'll put it into a momentum savings, a momentum plus savings account for, let's say, setting up for groceries or rent or anything that might come up later on. Um, that's probably the two best ways. It's like they'll set up a long-term goal within the tax-free savings, and then for daily expenses, they want to usually set up the momentum savings account.
Nice. That's very cool. That's good to know. Something I wish I did when I landed originally, but you live and learn. Let's scroll down a bit because I think there's some more questions coming in. How much money should I aim to save in an emergency fund? How long is a piece of string, I imagine, but
Uh, so the general consensus is that it's 3 month expenses. So whatever your expenses are for a month, times that by three, that's how much you want to have in your emergency fund. I'm a little bit more conservative when it comes to something like that. I generally save 3 months of my gross income in an emergency fund. So that should last me around 4 to 5 months. Let's say if I lose my job or I get injured or anything like that to help me recover.
for sure, it makes a lot of sense. John, as well, I see your question underneath. Is this webinar recorded? It is, and you will be able to access it later, for sure. Let's go down. Okay, what is the best financial product to protect my savings against inflation? Inflation is a buzzword we see, so this is a very curious one. Let's see what we got.
So usually, when it comes to inflation, is basically how much your money can purchase. Ideally, you want to try to match the market, since the market tends to beat inflation. Investing again, this is a very personal question, so it honestly depends on how much risk you're willing to take. I would recommend sitting down with an advisor and seeing what options you have to invest in. Let's say a tax-free savings account or even a non-registered account, and putting your money aside that can be invested in the market and eventually outperform or at least beat inflation.
For sure, that makes a lot of sense. Hugo, lovely to see the face back. Scotiabank has really differentiated itself in financing temporary residence auto purchases. Nice, and they sure have, and something I no longer need but will be going back to as now a new permanent resident. How you decide from Nozad what percentage of savings to put in a liquid savings account versus a regular savings account?
Yeah, so it's the only reason I included the liquid savings account is a lot of time when people just say I want to put money in a savings account, they usually prefer to the tax-free savings account. So I just wanted to emphasize that it's a liquid savings account. It's just a regular savings account. It's the same thing.
Same thing. Cool. So, I mean,
Yeah.
how do you decide what percent your savings is? A personal question again that
Yeah.
you have to answer, which you spoke
So,
to.
yeah, always sit down. Yeah.
Yeah. Andrea is coming back to us again. What happens to the funds in the FHSA if I end up not buying a property? Can it be transferred to another tax sheltered account?
So if you have the room, you're able to move it to the RRSP. But if you don't have the room in your RSP, you would be you would have to like liquidate it.
Fair.
You
Okay,
have to
but
take it out.
yeah, which is, I mean, you still have the money. It's not a terrible thing. Andrea,
Yeah,
perfect. Thank you. You're very
yeah.
welcome. Um, okay, here's a good one from Nazad again. How long before moving to Canada should I be looking at calling Scotiabank?
The moment you get your SIN, like when you get your SIN, you can come on down. We have packages for newcomers, whether it's a student, a PR, or work permit. We can set you up with a checking account, any of the investment accounts that we talk to. Um, for work permit, they generally do want to see that you already started working, so they want like maybe a pay stub or a job letter.
Mhm.
But for PRs and student permits, it's pretty much just you got your SIN, come on down.
I see a great question below, and I'm going to add to it a little bit. I wanted to find out if you can start saving before you move to Canada, is from Bunmi. But I'd like to also add the process of opening an account in Scotiabank before actually landing in Canada, and which bank account that you might recommend for someone who's a working professional. So I've thrown three questions at you there. If we can bundle them up and get them all out in the next 2 minutes, that'd be super. Just tell us all your information.
So yes, you can start investing. So you can't invest, but you can start putting money into a non-registered savings account. You won't be able to generate income from that account. I mean, you get like I think 0.05% right now. It's very very minimal.
Hmm.
Um, and any money that you put in there. So a lot of students, especially if they're coming from India, they require 10,000 Canadian to be moved into the non-registered account that they'll get access to when they arrive. And like I was saying, there are some people from that have PRs. They'll move an X amount of money into a non-registered account from back home, and when they arrive here, the money's available to them right away. Um, yeah, that I think that covers it. We just do a non-registered account, but you won't be making um, money with that money sitting there. It'll just be an easier way to move it here.
For sure, for sure. And having money on hand when you land is it's not to be undersold.
Yes.
Um, let's elaborate that on a little bit more. The process of opening an account with Scotiabank before you land in Canada. How easy is it to do, and what are the steps they should take?
I'm not 100% aware of how the process works, but you can. There are agents um, uh, that can help you with that. You can contact our um, contact center, and I believe in the last slide we had our number there as well. So you can give them a shout, and then they can definitely give you more information on that.
But it is possible, is key, that if you want
Yeah.
to get this set up ahead of time, get ahead of all the faff, reach out to the guys, and they can do some magic. Final question on this: which bank account would you recommend for someone who's new, who's a working professional in the country?
If you have a work permit or a PR, when
Hmm.
you land, you will be getting a preferred package, which is an unlimited account. You can use it as much as you want. You get that for free for 1 year. On average, sorry, not on average. Per month, it's 16.95 for the monthly cost. But again, for a PR on a work permit, it'll be considered free. You wouldn't have to track how many transactions you do. It's unlimited. You get a slightly higher rate of return on your savings account. Um, I think that's usually the one that most people prefer to go with, and it's called the preferred package.
That makes sense. Cool.
Yeah.
Let's go through some of these. Oh, an interesting one from Canex Visa. What are some common financial mistakes newcomers make, and how can you avoid them? So, have you seen anything out there that you're like, oh, probably shouldn't do that?
I think the biggest one I saw was with credit cards.
Hmm.
A lot of people have this misconception that the credit card is basically, oh, the bank gave me, let's say, $1,000, that they can use 1,000 and only pay the minimum back. That will destroy your credit score. And in Canada, if your credit score suffers, it's very hard to buy a car. It's very hard to buy a house. And in some locations, like Toronto right now, they do a credit check when you're applying for a rental unit, so it's going to become even difficult to get a nice apartment. Protecting your credit score is very, very key. So whenever you use your credit card, you want to pay it fairly quickly. Generally, the time horizon is 21 days after the statement is made. So I would usually recommend you get your statement, just pay it off in full. Don't do minimum payments, pay off as full. Obviously, life is crazy, so things can happen, but you want to make sure you pay on time and as much as you possibly can.
For sure, makes complete sense. And Abhijit, I'm getting questions from multiple screens in front of me, so this one I want to touch on as well. Should I always be using a credit card for everyday purchases, or is there an instance you would recommend using a debit card for? So I think it's in the same vein of what we're talking about, but maybe you can elaborate on it.
So yeah, I always recommend using a credit card for your daily purchases. The only reason I would use a debit card is if the place doesn't take it, or there are certain scenarios like we have the Gold Amex, so the Gold American Express, and there are some places that do not accept American Express credit cards. So in those scenarios, I would be using a debit card. But
For sure.
generally, I would want to use the our credit card to get the most amount of points.
For sure, makes complete sense. And Mahadi, I hope I'm saying your name right. I apologize if I'm not. We did just talk about how to apply for Scotiabank from another country, so do get that phone number. We'll make sure it's in the group chat here, and you can hopefully sign up from Ethiopia. Um, and there we go. Which bank account would recommend professionals? We talked about that. Thanks for clarifying. You're very welcome, Nazad. So we have some other questions here. We'll take Kevin's first, and then I'll deal with some of the questions that came through on a different platform. How can I effectively budget and save money while adjusting to the cost of living in Canada? Any tips for Kevin?
But budgeting is a little hard. On our Scotiabank app, we have a budgeting tool that helps you kind of track your spending in the last couple of months. Um, right now, because inflation is so crazy, it's very hard to not be paycheck to paycheck right now. I would recommend using the app to help you determine where your funds are actually going and then seeing if there's any changes you can make. But budgeting needs to be flexible, mainly because life is crazy and you never know what's going to happen. I would recommend another one of the things that we usually say is like you want to make sure that you put away your investments and your savings first, and then the rest of the money is what you play with. Again, right now that's extremely difficult, but that's kind of my approach. Is like you want to save for yourself first, and then the rest of the money you can deal with after.
I think though, even with that, it makes a lot of sense, and it's a good tip to keep in mind. A lot of budgeting is personal, but it's also down to you committing to it. It's very easy to drain your emergency fund for that holiday away, or that, for me, that nice new lens or new camera. Um, but you need to be strict with yourself. That's what budgeting is, and that's how building wealth. You need to be willing to look at the bigger picture and not look for that short-term gain, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think we can both attest to the cost of living in Canada has fluctuated wildly in recent years, but you still can certainly budget and save money and be smart. And I think you hit the nail on the head when you said the Scotiabank app and the budgeting tools in there. They're phenomenal. I use them on a daily basis to see how much I'm spending on coffee, which is horrifying. But yeah, it's better to know than not know, is my take on it. We have another question from Arcana. Kindly throw some light on building credit scores before even landing in Canada, and if you can, how can Scotiabank help me here? I believe you can't, but maybe I'm wrong on this.
No, you can't. Once you land here, then you'll be opening up your credit products and then using that to help build your credit score. From abroad, there's nothing.
Hmm.
There's no way for you to build credit score abroad.
There's no plan of transferring credit from any countries, is there? I believe that was something that was talked about before, but I'm not sure where it's at.
Not that I'm aware of. No.
Cool. We can figure it out. We'll have a little look and see. Hi, I am not open. I am not closed. Cool. Let's go to some of the questions we've had from earlier. So let me pull them up on this screen here. What would you suggest are the key financial steps someone should take within their first year in Canada to start building wealth?
Ideally, you want to make sure that you have a tax-free savings account set up. Obviously, everybody is different, so everybody will have a different approach. But focusing on having an emergency fund set up will make sure that when hard times hit, you can recover smoothly. And then also having a goal in mind. It doesn't matter how ridiculous it is or how small it is. You need to have a goal in mind and stick to it. So using the tax-free savings account, RSP, the first home savings account, or even a non-registered account, but making sure you put money aside every paycheck, every month, whatever works best for you, and you're always you're consistently working towards that goal by putting money aside. That would be the best advice I can. Oh, and the other one would be credit. Make sure you have a credit card that you're using and you're paying off in time, because your credit score affects you massively.
Okay, that's horrifying for me to hear, but good to know in advance. uh, Abhijit, a question that I have, this is coming from myself, so sorry everyone else writing in. I was massively investing illiterate. I didn't know anything about the investing process. It's not something I grew up with. But how much money would you recommend you would need saved up to begin that investing process?
You don't really need much. So there are certain funds that require a $500 minimum investment, but there are some funds that you can start off with just having $25 every 2 weeks monthly, and you can slowly build over time. But everybody's slightly different. Um, there's always a way for us to make it work for you. Even if you can only put $10 aside, we'll figure out a way to make that work as well.
For
But
sure.
when you're investing in funds, it's $500 minimum for most funds. But there are some funds that allow us to do $25, let's say, every month, and you'll be able to get access to those funds.
Okay, cool. So very flexible in how you actually want to do it.
Yeah.
Abhijit, how much should I spend each month to pay off my loans compared to saving? So is there any tips or tricks or insight you have on that kind of percentage or breakdown?
So it depends on what your percentage is for your loan versus how much you're going to be getting back in returns with your savings account. Right now, on average, you might be getting, let's say, 3%, 4% back on a savings account. But if your line of credit is 12%, it doesn't make sense for you to put $100 into your savings and $100 towards your line of credit when you're technically down almost 8%. It would be more beneficial to just put the 200 directly onto your line of credit. As any bad debt you want to get rid of as quickly as possible. Mainly, it's going to be consumer debt. So think of credit cards being hyper expensive. You don't want to carry debt on credit cards ever.
For sure. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Um, how much should I? Oh, sorry, that's the exact question I just asked. A lot of small text around here. Does the max amount I can contribute to my TFSA change year to year, or will it stay the same?
It changes every year. So let's say if you landed in Canada in 2024, your amount would be 7,000. But if you landed in 2023, so 2023 was 6,500, and then 2024 7. So you'd
Hmm.
be allowed to put in 13,500.
Nice.
So every
Okay,
year they will increase. Yeah.
cool. And here's a curious one that's come through. How early should I start saving for retirement? And does it make more sense to put money in a TFSA first?
I think the earlier you start, the more beneficial it would be, since you will give the interest the ability to compound, and the more it compounds, the more money you'll eventually make. Um, when it comes, I generally want to invest in both RSP and the tax-free savings account, but it also depends on your the income level you're at. So if you are making, let's say, 90,000 a year, a lot of your money is going to be going towards taxes. So it makes more sense for you to put it into an RSP, since you can save on those taxes. The tax-free savings account obviously gives you more liquidity, but it doesn't give you an immediate tax relief. So
Mm,
both are great options, but the earlier you start, the more money you'll make.
for sure, makes a lot of sense. And then also you can, with the retirements, if you are buying a house or something like that, you can utilize all the nooks and crannies of that. One of our final questions, Abhijit, is what if I don't put the max amount into my TFSA in a year? Will it then roll over to the next year?
Yes, 100%. So that's if someone again landed in 2023, but they never opened a tax-free savings account in 20, like today even they can come in and put 13,500, no questions asked. It just depends on when you came, when you got your SIN. That's kind of the
Nice.
main thing.
Cool. Abhijit, I think we're going to leave it there. We're pretty much up on the hour, but I just wanted to say thank you so much for coming on the call today and chatting to us. You've certainly
Pleasure.
taught me a thing or two, and judging by the questions coming in and the people responding in the chat, it seems like we've all got a lot of value out of this. and we'll be all building a lot of wealth in Canada now. So expect many calls.
Can't wait.
Amazing. Well, look, thank you so much for joining us today. Folks, if you do have any questions, I do strongly urge you do get in touch with Scotiabank about building your wealth here in Canada. They have been massively helpful for me. But for now, that is it. So see you next time.
Take care.